Any specific one you're looking to buy? What's the top choice?
I think top choice, maybe no. My portfolio currently is still very, I would say, let's say, on these names that I mentioned, right, they are quite uniformly distributed, meaning that the allocation is about the same.
Allocation is the same. No favorites.
Yeah, it's not like all-in kind of portfolio.
Like me, Okay. Okay. So there's nothing keeping you up at night?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing keeping you up. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back. Today I have Bunty with me. It's been 3 months since we last spoken.
Yes.
And today we will do some catch up.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bunty, what are your views on the general market now?
Yeah, I think my general view, right, is that, I'm also paying a lot of attention into all these macro topics. And the recent one is talking about fears of inflation. I think these are already kind of embedded into the stock prices. So I'm not too worried on that because stuff like rate hikes and so on, these are the things that we already know. But there are also stuff that I'm more concerned with. For example, like we talk about recessions, right? And I observe companies that invested, some already showing some slower growth, right? So I think these are like things that I'm more concerned with because if the situation just continue, right, if we just extrapolate, we might see that corporate profitability might drop in the next coming quarters. So that will actually hurt the stock price. So I'm more on the bearish side, but not like very super pessimistic. So I think that all this should be just short term, and then hopefully in a year or two, things will go back to normal. So as for my investment, I think it's just like status quo, just do whatever that I've been doing.
We know that Chicken Genius is extremely bearish on the market. So I want to ask if you agree with Chicken Genius on his broader stance of the general market.
Yep.
Yeah.
As just now I mentioned about all these recessions, right? Yeah. So on that, right, actually I agree with most of the points that Chicken Genius mentioned. So just a recap, I think he gave a lot of attention to monetary tightening and say that because now inflation is like 8%, right? The short rate have to go beyond that in order to bring down the inflations, right? So basically that's his argument. I'm agreeable with the direction, but I'm not as pessimistic as him. Okay. So for example, now we already see that interest rate hike, right? The effect is not immediate one because the rate hike actually started beginning of this year. It's not like the rate increased interest rate by, let's say, like 1% or more, right? And then immediately we feel the impact. Of course, stuff that is like mortgage, interest rate, those we can see it like kind of immediate, right? But the secondary effect on the economy, actually, they will take like 6 months, 12 months, or even 18 months to actually spill to the entire economy. So the tightening, right, actually it will take times to play out. So in that sense, I think that we just started to see the impact. And let's say if the Fed just slow down the rate hike and then let's say keep the interest rate around 3 to 4%, right? I think once the impact come in, right, then we will see that the market will be cooled down. It's just that when the market is cooled down, of course there will be some impact. What we want to see is the inflation should come down. But what we don't want to see is that, let's say, revenue, corporate profitability, all this drop significantly, and that will be bad for our stock portfolio, right? So I think just to wrap up, right, I think I'm thankful that he's like showing all these things. Sometimes investment is not just about the company that we invest in. The environment itself, of course, play a role. And let's say if the macro environment is not good, right? So and we see a lot of volatility in the stock price. I think that is something that we should be prepared for. I think understanding of this is very important.
I think so. My follow-up question is: do you think we can achieve a soft landing?
I think this is the tough questions, right? I would say that, let's say if interest rate just gradually go up and then things are still working well, right? For example, if we look at the labor market, or this is still healthy, this should be considered as soft landing. But hard landing is very hard to predict because hard landing is not like, okay, just because your interest rate goes up and then GDP drop and then that's hard landing, right? It's usually not the case. It's usually that after you do all this tightening and then there will be some companies that cannot take it anymore and they will have to do a huge layoff and companies might need to declare bankruptcy, right? Because they are not able to sustain anymore. So stuff will break and that will actually cause the hard landing, like when you see companies closing down and so on. Just like, for example, like during COVID, if it is just like their revenue come down a bit, I think business will still continue because they know that this is just temporary, business will come back, right? But to a certain extent, it might actually serious enough that companies will just say, okay, forget about it, I'll just closing down my business. And if that happen, right, many people will lose their job, and then that will be a cycle that's very hard to control, right? So, in my opinion, this is not my base case, but it's also not something that we can say, okay, because I see that the labor market is healthy now, soft landing should be the case, right? We cannot be too cognizant about it. We should be prepared. If there's sign point to like, okay, the crisis will be much bigger than what we expect, right? Then maybe we need to take much smaller risks than we are taking.
If that's the case about like, because if you, according to CGS, you want to destroy inflation, you have to increase your CPI above the inflation rate. What probability do you assign that things will play out like 2000, 2008? Like this kind of scenario where like we are always like very optimistic at the start, but then things later really took a bad turn. So I want to ask you about this actually.
I don't expect that to happen. I will assign, let's say, 10% chance.
10% chance.
Not saying
that's very low.
Very low compared to like Chicken Genius. Of course, he said that he described that this crisis that is coming could be same level as 2008 or even 1930s, right? I'm not having the same view on that. The reason is that, you know, this round of monetary tightening, right, is not the first round. So the quantitative easing started around 2008-2009 global financial crisis, and then the quantitative easing continued until 2016 or 17, and then they started to like pare down the balance sheets, right, which is the quantitative tightening. So this round that we are experiencing is actually not the first round. It's actually the second round. The first round happened in late 2018 when we see the tech stocks also crash quite significantly, around like 20%. And now we already experienced like 20% crash, right? So I think I'm imagining that current drawdown, the one that we are seeing now, right, could be at similar level as 2018. Definitely not as serious as 2008. The reason is because if we look at like the banking sectors, they are still very healthy. The capital is still strong, right? So I don't think that the market will just break like that now.
Off topic a bit. Any thoughts on the Europe in winter? Like I've seen all the energy prices like skyrocketing. Because I feel that like cost of energy will definitely impact. I mean, it's a good indicator of recession.
I think this one also, like, macro things is very hard to predict, right? Because what happened with Europe's like all these energy crises, there are many different reasons. One of the reasons, I mean, is the more structural one is the underinvestment into infrastructure in energies, right? So this one has been ongoing for a number of years, and then when COVID hit, there's no demand for oil. All these companies even cut back in their capex, right? And now we are suffering this shortage of energy. And then, of course, the other reason is Ukraine-Russia war, right? So I think for European, mainly I would say it's because of all this their relationship with Russia. If there's positive developments from Ukraine-Russia war, right, say that they might want to stop the war and then just come to a peace agreement, right, then I think this problem, I can't say it will be solved immediately, but at least we will get some relief out of it. So, but then if not, right, if this situation continue, winters come, we already see that the energy prices already went up quite significantly. Hence, you can see that the geography or the countries that suffer the most, of course, is European countries, right? You can see that their currency already dropped significantly since the crisis. So I think this kind of pain will continue for sure. But I think the good thing is that the companies that you and I invested in is not so much into European countries. So I think we can take a bit of relief from that. But I think all this can escalate now.
Okay, there's this quote I read from the third largest Tesla investor, which is Leo Koh Guan. He lives in Singapore, from Indonesia. So he says something about like money is like energy, it's like work done. So work done translates to money in a sense. So it's about understanding and manipulating your environment. Because us as human beings, we have the pair of hands, manipulate our environment to build resources around us. So any thoughts on what he say?
I think
this, like energy, money is energy, money is information for. I mean that is from Elon. Money is information. Is database for resource allocation.
Yeah.
Like money, to me, money is dead.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
We just like discuss for fun. Discuss
Yeah,
for
yeah.
fun. No right or wrong.
Actually, okay, Koh Guan stuff, right? I also try to like browse through the paper that he wrote, right? Okay, I can share that like I understand like 0%. It's not even 1%. So it's very hard for me to
Speaking alien language
understand.
for us.
Like totally blank. I actually prefer the definition given by Elon Musk, which is okay, money's right. Okay, we understand money as, let's say, like cash on hand. Sometimes now even with like bank accounts, right? I think the better definition is come back to the database. Basically, it's just like a record of who own what, and then the transfer, right? Which is like when you buy something or if it is a services, it's just a transfer. You need to record down, right? Let's say if we don't have money and just two of us, let's say on an island, right? And let's say I help you something, okay, I catch a fish, I give it to you, and then you just record down like, okay, you owe me one fish, and then maybe you go and in return you help me build a house. So all this you actually don't need the money. You can just have a record, and money is just a systematic way to like
easier way of
exchanging
things,
and exchanging
goods and services.
Yeah, it is just a tool to help the society to organize. So that's what I see it.
I think what Elon says is more practical.
Yes.
And what Koh Guan says is more theoretical. So, but because he's successful and like there is difference in worldview between us and a person like him. So I was trying to understand what actually he's saying. Like it's very complicated, the things he says. Like time is a fetus of space, time is a womb of don't know. I mean no, space is a fetus of time. Time is all this kind of thing. And then he's talked about all this manipulation of energy around us, that we are all born with resources. It's whether or not our mindset can, like, you know, the scarcity and abundance mindset. Once you have abundance mindset, you really can see opportunities around you. Because I also understand from the point of view that when you operate from scarcity mindset, you are looking at your resources on your hand, and then you are not looking around all the opportunities, all the energy around you that you can make use of. So any take on that, like what he's talking about? Yeah.
I think the first take that I have is that that's the difference between, let's say, someone who like already achieved huge success, right? A billionaire living in Singapore. So I'm definitely not operating at his level. That's why a bit hard for me to comprehend his understanding.
Do you think it's knowledge gap or not?
I definitely think it's knowledge gap, but I also think that all these, let's say if there's more resources for us to dig, right, and then hopefully we can bridge that gap, right? It's not like something that cannot be bridged, right? So it's just that we need time and energy to actually understand all these concepts, right? So I think definitely can be done.
I mean, all the things he say is sort of like very interesting narrative that I find maybe quite useful for if people can understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was trying to understand it, but I find I mean, I don't think I am a dumb person, but like when it comes to reading what he has to say, I feel like a monkey. Then I was like quite fascinated by him.
It's okay. I think we try to reach out. I think let's say if we have a chance to meet him, then maybe we can ask him in details.
Next question. Since just now we talked about theory of relativity in your video,
yes,
I would like to ask you about what fascinates you about Einstein's special theory of relativity.
Actually, just now we have this discussion, so you might want to click on my channel to view Sinhai's answer to this question. But my take on special theory of relativity, I'm very fascinated on this because, you know, before I stumbled upon all these topics, right, I always thought that time is absolute, space is absolute. But once we understand about this, right, we notice that actually that's not the case, right? The world that we perceive, right, is not the actual reality. It's just our perceptions. So, and then if we want to really understand the real physics, right, we cannot just like sit there and then just think about it and then we can come to answer, right? We have to really deep dive into all these readings and then just to understand, and maybe just put a piece of paper, try to follow all these mathematics formulation and just try to understand it from mathematical approach. And what fascinated me is just how complex it is. Very hard to imagine when, you know, like time and space is not like just I mean, they are the one thing, right? Like that's why they call it space-time, right? I think it's outside of what we can imagine. But at the same time, we can actually break down all these components and try to understand special theory of relativity is because of speed of light is constant, and hence the formula has to change to accommodate for that. And this morning we also talked about like, okay, in order for all this physics to progress, right, you cannot just like build one step and one step, right? Sometimes, you know, from Newtonian physics to Einstein's physics, it's not just learn new things. Sometimes it's about like unlearn what we thought is true, which is the Newtonian. Basically, that's not true anymore, and hence we have a better theory, right? So I'll draw some parallel. Is that when it comes to investing, I think sometimes it's also the case. It's not just like, okay, this is the knowledge that we have, and then we just add a little bit. It's not the case. Sometimes it's also to challenge our understanding or our knowledge, and learn at the same time, unlearn and relearn again.
Value investing, growth investing.
So and then you will actually upgrade, right? So there must be something that you thought is true at a certain point of time, and then you have a different understanding, and hence you enlarge your circle of knowledge, right? Yeah.
I think just for the viewers, since we are talking about, not many may think about theory of relativity. Maybe want to share something more. What is interesting about Einstein's theory of relativity? Like what is it about? What is it about?
Yeah. So my understanding is that
we can do a small like discussion. Don't have to.
So I think in all this Einstein theory, right? Of course, the famous one is E equals to mc squared. But actually, what is more approachable one is the special theory of relativity. That one actually, you just look at the formula, the simple formula of speed equals to distance over time, right?
Yeah.
And then you apply that to speed of light, and suddenly it doesn't apply anymore because the speed of light is constant regardless of direction and regardless of whether you move same direction as a speed as the light. So I think that one is really, it will challenge us when it comes to our understanding, because if you imagine like light as a car, then you can actually overtake the car, right? And as long as you move faster. But when it comes to speed of light, you can't do that. Regardless of what's your speed, you can move as fast as half the speed of light, and yet when you measure the speed of light, they are still the constant, right? Meaning that you can't actually go past that limit, right? So I think all this is really fascinating. What about you?
For me, just now we talked about like how time can be dilated based on motion and gravity. So time is relative, it's not absolute unit of measurement. And it fascinates me whether or not we experience time differently from outer space.
Yes.
If we experience time differently here, will other civilization experience time faster, or like all this kind of thing, if they exist?
Yeah. True. So I think for those who want to like understand in more details, aside from Wikipedia and YouTube documentary, you can also watch movies, right? I think there are movies that talk about Interstellar talk about it, where when they move into different planet with different gravity, and the time actually just move at vastly different speed, right? So I think that one is very interesting. And this is not just movie, by the way, for those who don't know about it. This is like from physics theory point of view, is really true. As long as you have that level of gravity,
physics is the study of truth.
Yes, then time will move at a different speed.
Then it's like you can question about your understanding of what time is. Actually, it's quite all very brain F. Space expands faster than speed of light. Speed of light is 299,792,458 meter per second. So for space to expand that fast, and just now we talk about like what's outside of space, what's inside of space. So many things. So I think that's fascinating for us. Okay, so next question. Have your worldview changed since we last spoken on May?
I would say worldview is still the same. Maybe it's because of sign of aging also. Worldview don't change as frequent. That's worldview, but then of course with the same worldview, but when we observe the market, when we observe the companies that let's say I invested in, right? Of course things looks quite different at that time compared to now. Like because I mentioned in the beginning, like I mentioned in the beginnings,
different point of reference.
In the early years, I think companies are still like growing very fast, and some companies growing at let's say 40-50% rate. Now you can see that they already slow down a lot, right? So there are companies that already seen some slowdown. But luckily, I think Tesla is still growing fast, so I think that's a good sign.
The fixed cost business, but the margin already affected because
Yes.
of how amount of cars they produce, and it shows on the number.
Yeah.
From 33% become 26.something% because
Yes.
of increase of raw material, decrease in output.
Yeah,
So that understanding of that really what is a fixed cost business is helps lah.
yeah, operating leverage.
Definitely. Any other changes that like since we because in May we especially spoke quite a lot. Yeah. So TSMC, anything?
TSMC, I think, let's say if we go to Semicon in details, right, we can see that companies, especially NVIDIA, actually when I look at the numbers, the inventory build out and also their revenue come down and their net income come down a lot to the extent that, okay, if you just extrapolate it, maybe they are not making money in the next quarter already. I think that is possible, right, if you look at the situations. So the problem now is that there's quite significant slowdown in PC. I think that hit their results quite a fair bit. And then of course the new, let's say like the 40 series graphic card will be coming up soon, and hence for gamers, of course, they will wait for the newer product to come out and then only they buy, right? So all this contribute to the poor results, right? So I think this one, you can see that this is the companies that is closest to customer. But of course, TSMC, they are they manufacture the chips, right? For now, it's still okay, but you can see that if their customer is not doing good, right? In the future, there will be pressure to cut their pricing and so on, right? This also is possible.
So other than, so other than TSMC as an immediate spillover, any other thing that, let's say, NVIDIA will spill over to another industry or like closest? What's the closest?
I think
so maybe I can connect the dots also.
Yeah. So I would say the way I see it is this, right? NVIDIA is already like selling to the customer. They are closest to the customer.
Yes.
But behind NVIDIA will be companies like TSMC who manufacture. But actually behind TSMC there are like hundreds of companies that is supplier to TSMC, right? For example, like SML, UV machines, and then all the semicon providers, machineries, and so on. So I think the other sectors, because now we are still seeing the result based on all these increased capex, and hence their business looks good, right? But once the business on the NVIDIA, which is the customer-facing part, slowing down, they will trickle down to the supplier as well. But all this hasn't come yet if you look at Q2 result. But we will see something, let's say, in Q3 and Q4. So I think these are, whoever invested in semicons, right, you need to understand that these are cyclical business. So all this is normal. But as long as the companies, for example, like NVIDIA, they still have their mode, the products that they produce, right, is deemed as not so replaceable because they really have their fans, right? So over the long term, I'm still bullish on the companies. But when look at the short term, we need to understand that now this is the down cycle. I think it depends, right? For some who are like traders, they will say that, okay, this is not the time to buy because we still haven't seen the bottom yet, right? It could just be the start, right? There's still room to fall. But at the same time, there are who are long-term bullish on the companies. They will say, okay, it's good to accumulate now, right? Because if you accumulate throughout, let's say, over the next 12 months, 18 months, right, for sure you are able to catch the bottom, right? And once the next upcycle comes, you will see that that's where we see the real profits. But be prepared of the volatility, that's for sure.
So would you say NVIDIA is attractive as compared to TSMC, or would you say TSMC is more attractive to you?
I think they are both, to me, I'm bullish on both companies. But when look at how I see two of them is that because NVIDIA is mostly like just software, right? The manufacturing, the heavy business is passed to TSMC. So definitely when it comes to profit margin, they are better. But this type of like, if a company just focus on the software only and not the hardware side, right? What happens is that they will be, good thing is high profit margin, but the bad thing is that they are more like winners take all. Meaning that if there's another companies that is very good when it comes to software or software side, right? They can take over NVIDIA, and then basically that will be a huge impact to NVIDIA because they don't have the hardware business that serve as a moat, right? So their moat is really how good are they at writing the codes, or the design part, the blueprint for what to print into the chips, right? So that's why I would say, if you talk about like upside, right, definitely NVIDIA will be bigger as compared to NVIDIA because NVIDIA is better than TSMC because of this. When you look at TSMC, I would say that they are just safer because whichever chip designer companies win, right, they will pass down to TSMC and they will just be the manufacturer, right? So their business is more stable. Yeah.
That's the downside also.
Yeah, but in terms of return also, they won't be as high because it's really heavy capex business.
Heavy
Yeah.
CapEx. Okay, so next question. What are some companies under your radar right now
Yeah.
that you are looking forward to buy, accumulate?
Yeah. So for those who are new, like first time listening to my having all these conversations,
Yeah.
right? My portfolio is like really heavy towards tech, especially the big tech. So it's not too different compared to, let's say, like QQQ. So I would say that's the best way to describe my portfolio. So the companies that I'm bullish on, right, is come back to these companies that is like heavy in QQQ, for example, like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, TSMC, Tencent. I think these are the companies that I'm bullish on.
So any specific one you're looking to buy? What's the top choice?
I think top choice, maybe no. My portfolio currently is still very, I would say, let's say, on these names that I mentioned, right, they are quite uniformly distributed, meaning that the allocation is about the same.
Allocation the same. No favorites.
Yeah, it's not like all-in kind of portfolio.
Like me, Okay. Okay. So next question, I want to ask you about life philosophy. Is there any life philosophy that helps you to live your life better, your own individual? Sometimes as a young person, I want to ask for wisdom that maybe like help to live my own life better.
Maybe not so much as wisdom. I'll just say that my personality, right, I'm more towards the look at things
realistic. Realistic, logical.
Realistic and try to live a simple life. I don't think there's anything that keep me awake at night. Most of the time, I would say that I sleep quite well. Even when it comes to investment, right, I try to have like simple kind of mindset and try not to overcomplicate myself. So because if life is simple, then life is happy, right?
Maybe, too complex also, kind of sad. So there's nothing keeping you up at night?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing keeping you up. Okay. So what is time and consciousness to you?
Wow. Come back to the physics question again.
Yes.
What is time and consciousness? I would just say that time, right, is like resources, right? So you have time, I have time. It's just resources. It's just like our energy, right? There's finite resources for each of us. So we just want to like make use of the resources to achieve whatever that we want to achieve, right? So that's time. So in terms of consciousness, I would just another word for consciousness, I would just say is awareness. So sometimes, especially for those who, let's say, have a 9 to 6 kind of work, right? Sometimes you just like, okay, morning, wake up, go to work, and then just go home tired, and these things just repeat, right? And then time just goes by, and then sometimes you feel that there's not much consciousness, right? You don't conscious about your environment.
Okay, sure.
So the word that I would say to describe it
Yeah.
is more like, okay, are you aware or not? Are you aware of, let's say, yourself? Are you aware of your surroundings? Are you aware of what is the development, things that's happening? And then, because you need to be aware of stuff, right, of development in order to like take opportunity, right? So I think all this opportunity is all around. It's just that we need to be aware. So surrounding and ourselves. And when it comes to talking about aware of ourselves, it's mainly on the mentality and also the attitudes. Because for example, right, you might have something that's bad happening, a very sad day for you. So if you are not aware, right, you might just stuck in your own kind of like feelings, and then basically you are not able to perform at a optimal level, right? Because you are emotionally disturbed at that point. But then if you are aware of your feelings at that time, sometimes you can become like detached away from yourself.
Third person point of view.
Yeah, then you have like a different kind of consciousness to see, okay, now you are not you are like someone else looking at yourself, right? So sometimes I think ability to like detach and then be conscious, be aware of our own feelings, especially those who, let's say, play with, like invest in options. Sometimes you have all this spike in your your emotions, right? As long as you are aware of it, it helps with the management of your feelings. So I think all this help when it comes to investment, when it comes to like living your life now. Yeah, so that one just something that I'm able to share.
Able to share.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, thank you, Bundy, for your time. Welcome back to YouTube. Okay, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Our link is channel down below. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go